Wednesday, February 1st, to order at 6:31. Tonight we'll start with a roll call. Attendance?
Commissioner Hagfors? Here. Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Chair Foster?
Here.
Commissioner Azar, sorry.
Here.
Commissioner Brazen?
Here.
Commissioner Akers?
Here.
And Councilman Polika? Here.
We did hear from Commissioner Showalter that he would be absent tonight. Did you hear anything from Commissioner Husky? She might just be running a few minutes late.
I would move that we excuse the absences of Commissioner Showalter and Commissioner Hosky-Kramer.
Second, for reason.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Tonight on our agenda, we have two public hearings. One for the consideration of PUD at 221 West Troy, another for a special land use application site plan review of 915 East Troy, an election of officers. Do I have?
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second, for reason.
That is motion by Hagfors and support by Brazen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and we have approval of minutes from the meeting of January 18th. Any amendments or comments?
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. Azar.
So motion by Polika and second by Azar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next, we have our call to audience. And so our call to audience is for anyone from the public who would like to comment on anything that's not on our agenda. And again, our agenda items for this evening are the PUD at 221 West Troy and a special land use application and site plan review for 915 East Drayton. So if anyone from the public would like to come to speak on a topic not on the agenda for this evening, now would be the time. And please state your name and address at the dais, and you have 3 minutes to address the commission. Welcome.
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever. My name is Gary Scott. I live at 619 Withington.
Welcome.
I've lived there for 35 years. On your January 18th meeting, you were discussing a project at 600 9 Mile, Ferndale Foods parking lot. Nice, great big apartment building. All right, I'm not a real computer literate person, but I struggled through and looked it up, looked at the plans. Now, when I got to the plans, I do better, because I've been a builder and construction manager for 59 years. What I did notice that stood out right away was the fact that my house wasn't there anymore. That concerns me a lot.
I would assume so.
Now, since no one has ever mentioned this to me, or no one has ever brought it up to my neighbors, how did my house disappear?
It's a very good question. One that I can't answer right now, but do you have further questions or comments that we can address?
Yeah, another thing I want to mention is that during listening to that thing about your meeting, they talked about how you need sidewalks and stuff where liver noise goes through because it would be safer. When I bought my house, the city gave a letter to the warranty company who warrantied my deed that liver noise would never be opened up. And yet you're talking about opening it up and putting in sidewalks, besides the fact that you're doing it where my house is standing now.
For the record, Commissioner Askew, I'm already calling you the wrong name, arrived at 6:35. Sorry for the interruption.
So I would like to know how my house disappeared. plan to take my house?
I don't think that is our intention at all, sir. So,
Do you want to answer or have the
yeah, so
rest of the comment?
I think it's a very good question. We typically don't really give a lot of time to respond to comments in real time with during the call to audience, but I think this one certainly deserves an answer. And so it's certainly something that we'll have to discuss with city staff and to look into the issue, which causes a lot of concern. So I am unaware of, the specifics, but I will say that we had, at the last meeting, the item came to us as a discussion item. There was no action taken. And we have not, I don't think we've received an actual application for the development at the site. So it was just a discussion to talk about possible issues concerning the development.
This is the same project that you tried to do, 15 years ago?
Well, I'm not aware of that, but so we will certainly look into that and make sure that, can you exchange information with the city staff so we can make sure to
Who will be
address that?
contacting me with the answers?
I believe that would be Kyle right here, Mr. Bryce. He's our city planner, and we can exchange information to make sure to get you some better answers than I can give you right now.
Obviously, I'm not happy about the idea.
I would not be either, sir.
I'm a poor old senior citizen, and you're trying to take my house.
I don't believe that's the case, so.
Through the chair, this isn't a city project. It was the owners of the property that brought it to the city for a conversation about whether or not this board would approve something like that. At no time did the city be involved in developing those plans or drawings or creating the conversation. It's the owners of the property that came to the city and said, we're interested in doing this project. Could you give us some ideas?
I'm opening the conversation.
No, that's good, and that's a great point. And the owners of that property would only be able to develop on their property. So potentially, your house just didn't end up on the plans because it was drawn, it was just a part of the site plan. So we'll certainly address all the issues and talk to you more specifically about that. But thank you.
586-431-9222.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Hi, I'm a resident of Tom Kaiser. I live on Withington. I also have a construction background for many years. The first thing that I noticed on the preliminary was that there was a failure to show a location of the legal description and easement for the 48-inch water main that runs through Livernois. You're aware that there's been breakages at the end of the far end of Livernois, also south immediately between 8 and 9 Mile. The other thing I want to point out is that on that preliminary site, they failed to show the location of shopping cart corrals. And the other thing is they also need to show a simulation of semi-trucks and trailers that come in off of 9 Mile and how they're going to get to the loading dock. And also they have to unload on the east side of the strip mall. And I noticed that when you had that preliminary study, they showed parking lots. Well, I was there and I have pictures, I'll show you today, where a truck was unloading, where you have these possibly 4 or 5 parking locations, but the truck needs 120 feet. I'll show you how much distance he has to go. And what we'd like to see is a simulation of the truck path, of the wheels, of the trailer, of the truck, as they ingress and egress off of 9 Mile. I want to point out to you, when Kroger's was originally built, the woman that lived up the street, she passed away recently, Joan Stefanik, she was the past president of Ferndale Chamber of Commerce. In the late 70s, when Kroger's built the original store, they occupied the current Ferndale, that occupies the current Ferndale food footprint. They got assurances from Kroger that all deliveries would come off of 9 Mile and that Withington would not be used as a delivery route for the store. And I don't know if we can go back and see if that was put into the minutes of the council, but she was very adamant on that in the Chamber of Commerce to keep it as a neighborhood. Also, you have to consider dumpsters that come in there. You need a footprint of what they're going to do in the trucks. The other thing you have to consider is, will Livernois stay open during construction? Because if you close it down, if you go up by Roosevelt School during the school years, have you noticed the 3 or 4 block backup of parents willing to get waiting to get their children? Where are you going to run the fire trucks to people in that part of the neighborhood that need immediate care from either ambulatory or fire? You're not going to come down Woodward and then go back into the neighborhood. Not when you're doing the diet. The other concern is pedestrian traffic that has to go between both Withington, 9 Mile. You're going to put a bike lane in there? You're going to give us a sidewalk? Okay? Walk through there. You have to be careful. I now live on Withington, and because of the narrowing of the traffic on 9 Mile, we're like 9 Mile North. I never back out of my driveway anymore. I back into my driveway because I have to come out. And the other problem that we have now in the summer, the skateboarders. That's something you have to be very careful when you leave your driveway so you don't pick them off, because they're coming down, repaved Withington. They love to take their skateboards and ride down, but you don't see them. So if you're going to bring trucks down there, you got a big problem. And remember, when you narrowed Withington, you put the bump outs. You couldn't have a speed bump because it was for what? It was for the ambulance, and we were told so the ambulance and the fire trucks could run back and forth on Withington. And I can also mention of all the people that used the parking lot, things like buses from Pontiac that was parked there this week where they laid over, because she had to pick the students up from Ferndale School. You also have FedEx, UPS to bring the big trucks in, and then you bring the local panel trucks to do what? They distributed the load from the big trucks into the small trucks so they could deliver in the neighborhoods of Ferndale and Oak Park in that area. And I can go on with other things that you guys have to consider. And the other thing is, when you have holidays and festivals, when you shut down 9 Mile, where's all that traffic going to go? Pride Fest, Woodward, where do they go? They come right down Woodward. And we're solid parking. The other thing you have to concern yourself, like you do on 409, the tenants pay for parking. Are the tenants going to pay for parking underneath the structure? And if they don't pay, where are they going to park? Drive over on Paxton, drive over in that area, and look at how horrendous the parking is for those poor people that live near 409 on 9. They're a couple blocks away.
Thank you. We really appreciate your comments. Lots of comments that we addressed in our discussion at the last meeting. So if you're looking for a future commission seat on the Planning Commission, I recommend you put in your application. Lots of the things that we've discussed. Any further public comment? All right. Well, moving on our agenda, we'll move to our public hearing for the consideration of a planned unit development, or PUD, amendment application and site plan review for 221 West Troy, which is a mixed-use development. We will start with a presentation from our planner, Kyle Bryce, before we hear from our application team, and then we will open up for the public hearing.
Good evening, commissioners. I just want to do a quick little run through of the PUD process. We did this last time and I updated the slides a little bit. So tonight we are considering a recommendation of the PUD to City Council and also consider a conditional site plan. So again, we'll have a public hearing for this item, consider recommendation, and then at an upcoming City Council meeting, they will hold another public hearing and have a final consideration for approval. Some background on the DOT and the PUD process. In 2017, we had our initial discussion, preliminary review, and council approval. In 2018, there was a large amendment Most of the amendments from the 2018 PUD are still, in effect today and carrying through even to this approval. In 2019, the Planning Commission approved the site plan component of the office, which still has not been constructed. But tonight we are here for the the second amended PUD. So this is for the parcel B of the dot. So on the left-hand side here, you'll see parcel A, which is the larger parcel. That's the garage as we have it today with the first floor retail. Right now, we're only looking at parcel B, which is a 35-foot wide parcel. And note the cutout of the public plaza as part of the 2018 amendments. So the 2018 amended PUD did create a number of deviations from the zoning ordinance requirements, such as eliminating off-street spaces, eliminating the requirement of a vehicle access, and permitting ground level residential. It also eliminated private open area and set a 0-foot rear setback and did not require vertical articulation on the west side of the garage. Some of the other things that we discussed at our meeting at November 16th, which is the last time this was brought before us, we talked about maybe a unit count reduction. We thought maybe that 24 units had to be built. I looked through the documents. I don't think that was ever a requirement or a condition. It looks like we estimated a range of 14 to 25 could be built, but right now 18 is proposed. And then a height increase from 55 to 70. The underlying zoning does permit a height of 70 for this zoning district. So the actual PUD deviations that we have are a 5-foot extension building to the west and north property lines, a canopy extension 10 foot, 6.5 feet into the north property line, and 6 foot, 7.5 inches into the west property line, and Juliet balcony extension 7 feet into the west and north property lines. And I want to be clear that, again, any encroachment to the north property line is actually encroaching into this public space here in the northwest corner. Here's the layout. I think it's largely unchanged from last time around. I think the commission had some good comments from the previous discussion. There's a practical difficulty of building on such a narrow site, which is why we have the deviations as presented. I think the initial estimates back in the day of 2018 of how many units they could get on site, once they factored in the stairwells and hallways, they had to reduce the unit count a little bit. We are looking to keep the existing PUD deviations, but add the ones that I listed before. The only concerns I have for the site plan are the lighting needs to be slightly revised, as it's a bit bright in this transformer corner down here at the bottom of the site. We do need a waiver because this is a technically non-residential district that's abutting residential to the west. Typically, a screen wall is required, but if there's a street like Allen in the way, we can waive that away if it's seen as unnecessary. And I reached out to Jason's team about confirming the material calculations, and I think they're going to fix it up for the final site plan. I think we're almost 99% there. So without any further ado, these are Jason's better slides, so he can kind of walk you through the site.
Good evening, Jason Krieger, Cloud Architects, 2120 East 11 Mile. Thank you, Kyle. So I'll kind of breeze through these a bit. I think everybody's familiar with the project, and I'll just try and touch on some of the changes that were made. Can everybody see the screen right now? All right. Is this thing? Okay. I think we're all familiar with the project location. Kyle touched on it. It's on the west end of the dot. hard for me to see that. Let's see, so the site plan remains relatively the same from what we had. You can't really see it there, but I can see it on this screen right here. One of the comments last time was to illustrate more clearly the building overhang as well as the overhang. So what you'll see in some of these slides is we did intentionally just a bright yellow color that really graphically explains that. So I believe, scroll up. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties here. There you go. So you can see graphically that the total overhang is 6'7.5" up past the property line to the west. And then but the building's back 2'9", 5/8", basically 2'9.5" from the property line. And the overhang extends out 10.5 feet to the north from the building. And then this right here is a upper floor plan, and what we're showing in yellow is the distance from the property back into where the building is. This is the west elevation, so you can again see where the property line sits compared to where we're proposing the overhang in the building to go. And then the north and the south. One thing that we did do is initially, or last time we were here, we had some balconies, Juliet balconies are on the south. And one of the comments that came back was to get rid of those or move them, so we moved those to the west. The only balcony that we would still have would be the penthouse, the top unit. And, we feel that's up, high enough. It's some 50 feet up there in the air, and there's a half wall that's screening it. If the Plan Commission felt strongly, we could do another screen wall there or something like that. So that would be this elevation right here. Then we have some renderings of the elevations. So like last time, we have metal panels up on the upper floors. Cast stone would be proposed and brick down along the bottom. We still have the commercial space on the ground floor proposed. This dark line right here, again, is showing where the property line is, so the residential is proposed to hang over that with the overhang. We did bring that overhang back in from the last time. And we have some renderings.
Is that we had talked about potential tree growth along there, and that was part of the conversation about the overhang?
Yes, that's correct. And it's still, I would say it's still going over that a little bit, and we could always bring that back in another couple of feet, but that's up in the air about 20 feet. So I'm wondering if there's, a certain type of tree we could get that would be more columnar, or, get me like a dog, something that's a little bit lower. So it's, you could, just from a sense of scale, these are people. So you have plenty of room for growth.
You're not showing any trees in the rendering, but there are in the site plan, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. We just kept them off just so you could see the elevation, basically. So that's really, this is the big picture, the high level elements changed. Kyle gave you the rest of the technical information, and Greg Ernie's here, obviously, as the developer, to answer any other questions.
Sorry, one clarifying question. You said you removed the balconies from the west side.
Correct, so
South side,
these guys were facing south before,
That's right.
so we pivoted, we rotated them. I think they were actually more in the middle of the building.
Thank you. I just misheard you. Thank you for
Yep.
clarifying. All right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
With that, we will open the conversation to the public. The public hearing. Sorry, we haven't had a public hearing in a second. So I will Open the public hearing for the, again, PUD amendment application for 221 West Troy Street, otherwise known as the DOT, residential component. And we'll open the hearing at 6:56 p.m. So anyone who wishes to speak on this agenda item, if you have any comments, can come to the dais and have 3 minutes to. All right, well, good job, Jason. You must have addressed everyone's questions because I don't see anyone coming up. So I will close the public hearing at 6:56 and bring the conversation to the commission. We have seen this before. Does anyone want to start us off with any pressing questions or comments?
I'll jump in if
Sure.
I will. And please correct me if this was discussed at a previous meeting. One of the things I noticed in the site plan is the commercial space entrance is off of Allen. Was that something that we previously discussed, or is there a reason why it's not facing the actual commercial street?
No,
Discuss.
honestly, I mean, that could move. The only reason why it's there, I think, is because the building's kicked in a little bit more there, so you could technically have doors swing out. We could still do it on the north if the planning commission, and I don't know if you'd object to it, we just have to build a little vestibule in. It's not a big deal. We can, the other thing is, it seems like depending on what tenant goes in there, they might also dictate where that goes. But we could always move it if you want.
I mean, I think from my personal opinion, from like the fact that Troy is the commercial street and Allen is residential, I feel like that's kind of ignoring the fact that we kind of needed a buffer there and we really don't have one. So,
100%.
personally, I like the entrance off the north, but that's just my opinion.
Can I build on that? Ask a quick
Yeah, well,
clarifying question on the site plan?
sure.
Building on Dustin's question, Jason, well, I'm looking at sheet 4 of the site plan, but I'm sure you could show us on others. Will you clarify which doors on Allen are for building service, residential entrance, and then retail? I think 2 of them toward the alley, or maybe 3 of them toward the alley, service the residential portion of the building, and only 1 of them is for the retail, but I don't recall.
Yeah, so,
I don't remember if you're thinking 2 small retail spaces, because you've got 2 doors there on Allen, or is it?
no, we just have one
Okay.
general space. And so those could be moved up to the north. And then the residential lobby is facing Allen Street.
Yep.
And then we have like electrical riser room, so we'll have a couple of building services, but that'll be
Utility building
quiet,
services
no one ever really going there. Other than that,
And a fire exit, I think, at the back, right?
yeah, that goes out, but that's tucked back in beneath the building. And then we'd have an electrical room and a transformer that would face the alleyway.
So
My
this,
thought was, I mean, since it is a residential entrance in addition to the commercial, would it be possible to just add an additional door to the tenant from the north side for Troy? And then have a separate entrance for the commercial?
Sorry, say it again, I'm not following you.
So like, so you have,
I think that you would want the main entrance to address the address, and if the address is Troy, right, for the retail, is that what you're thinking, Dustin?
Correct, yeah, and you would still have, like,
Or you
the
have a side
residential
door or
entrance
not.
I'm fine with, because of the uses, like, it's a similar use on both sides
Yeah.
for residential, but the commercial space is kind of the outlier, where, I mean, if there's no commercial on Allen. So, and the address is Troy, you're correct, so it should really be a Troy entrance for the commercial space than an Allen
Even
entrance.
if
but
there's
what
a
I was
side-
thinking is that we wouldn't necessarily have to like, I think the floor plan is fine, you wouldn't have to actually move the
No.
lobby, which I think you had just
We
suggested.
would just move the doors.
Yeah, the commercial
You
space.
just add a door to the north end, or
Yeah,
side for
or
the
get
commercial.
rid of the doors on the west and just put them on the north.
For the retail
For the
space.
retail space only,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, that'd be,
I don't think that's what he's saying, though. He's saying get rid of the doors on the west, so that would mean moving the lobby.
No, it's a separate door for lobby.
Just for the retail,
Just the
the retail's pink.
You're looking at the lobby.
Lobby's back here.
Oh, are you
We're
talking
talking
about
about the retail.
the retail door on the north end?
The-
That's what I was missing.
Correct, yeah.
Yep.
that
My
guy,
bad.
yeah, if you could see
That's
that.
why I wanted him to remind me which was which.
That's a sneaky door in there.
I was
And
only
it's like
looking
a
at
double
that.
door, so then it faces.
Thank you. Yes, okay, that's what I was. yeah, I think,
Makes sense. It makes total sense, yeah.
Well, and through the chair, it makes sense because people using the parking structure are gonna come out that side door there at Troy, and it's easy just to go into that entrance, rather than walk all the way around the building, like the residents will have to every time they come home.
That's a good point.
the stairwell to the north there, though, does go to the residential, right? And there's a door to that on the,
Yeah, correct. There'd be a door there. So I guess, yeah, they could fob in and go upstairs there
Yep.
if they wanted to, yep.
Go upstairs, yeah. Elevator.
It's healthy.
Through the chair, just on that point, I think last time we were looking for what's the relationship of this building to the garage or the entrance to the garage, because it's set back, so we were just like, do they line up? Are we creating any kind of an alcove where the existing door into the garage is?
Let's see here, I don't know if we, yeah, I don't think we have a shot that's head-on here. We did model the garage, but I think you would want to see something a little more angled straight on, basically, right, looking at that.
Maybe if you could just describe, does it align with?
It's actually back from the garage facade a bit,
Okay.
yeah.
Through the chair, on the topic of floor plan, Jason, can you confirm with us, like, I see on the floor plan your color coding, you have the blue is 1 bedroom and the green is studio, correct?
Correct.
The floor plan for Studio A1, it looks like there's a door for the bedroom. So wouldn't that be considered a 1 bedroom?
Yeah, I think it could. I think it's the square footage and the fact that it's internal. So we were calling it a studio.
Okay,
A very, very small 1 bedroom.
okay.
Does that impact the parking count? Is that what you're asking, Dustin?
Yeah, like parking count and also just like what we're approving is like if we're approving 18 units, it's this many 1 bedrooms, this many studios, but 3 studios may actually be 1 bedrooms. That's where I'm kind of just trying to get clarification on. I get your point though, saying if they're an internal, I guess that then begs the question, do we have a problem with the fact that it's an internal bedroom without a window?
A2?
A1. It's the one, so it's the north side, the
I see.
second unit in.
I see.
Yeah.
Well,
This guy, right?
Yeah.
After you see the screen, this guy. We do that often, believe it or not, like in narrower apartments. And then, what we've done in the past, and we're not doing here, is you can also just kind of like leave it open or do it. I mean, you can't do a barn door here, but you can leave it kind of open with the bed around the corner, those
Yeah,
types of things.
exactly. Like just a nook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think our designer just popped the door in there, to be honest with you.
Okay,
but the building department would look at fire code.
correct, yeah,
I'm trying to channel Matt. Questions about interior bedrooms.
yeah.
Yeah, from a fire code standpoint, they would just egress out through the corridor, basically, so.
Right, but the building code will look at your internal.
Yep,
Your
yeah.
building department.
Yeah, I think we're good with stairs at both ends. We should be safe.
and the agreement, the PUD agreement does talk about having studios in 1 bedrooms, but it doesn't actually specify the count of,
Okay,
Oh, okay.
at least for my rough perusal through there. Unless I missed something more specific.
A couple small questions. I think we've seen this evolve over the last couple of years, so I don't have any big questions. And we just worked on the building just to the north of this, the old Rosie O'Grady site, with the extensions over at Public Right of Way. So I'm clear on how that works, particularly in the downtown. I have a question about lighting. I see a note that lighting on the south side, so on the alley side, needs to be reduced at the lot line, but I also want to talk about lighting at the west side, the Allen side. We've got a lot of frontage and a lot of glass, and the saving grace for this is that it really, vast majority of it faces the street as opposed to the houses in the backyards. But would you talk to me about any exterior lighting, if any, that you're planning for this
Sure. So,
west facade?
yep. So I'm just looking here. It looks like we have some wall sconces that would be like like up-down lights to kind of wash the building
That-
facade.
The up part is what I'm remembering from a past
Yeah.
discussion, and that's actually my main concern, is the up part.
Yeah, for
Shading our-
dark skies, basically. Yeah,
Well, but shielding our lights down just in order to minimize that creep off of the site
Yeah,
is what we
sure,
typically
absolutely.
require.
You know, and we would want to, you know, maybe look at some softer, you know, light beneath that canopy, you know, understanding that we want to make sure that the neighbors are not encroached upon. We get that, but we also want to make sure it's, you know, safe at night and looks attractive.
Are you thinking the sconce is just below the the up-down's just below the balcony, or washing up the whole front facade?
No, just beneath the overhang. So they would stop there.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, they don't throw light out. We have the same on our building where we are. It's just really, it just washes the building facade for the most part.
You do get a glowing UFO effect on something that's 5 stories tall, though, so that's why I was asking, are we going all the way up?
No, and
Or
it's
is
not. No.
This is pedestrian level.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, any other lighting questions, or should I? I'll keep going. There's a question about materials. And so mostly a question to the commission. Do we want to add a condition that materials, and maybe Kyle and Jason can help us clarify where you're heading on this. Should we specify that materials will conform to the ordinance? Is that where you anticipate landing, that it will conform, or do you anticipate needing some flexibility? Because I think we need to address that tonight.
No, our intent is, I mean, we're right there. We just have to add a little bit more brick on the
Okay.
one side.
So the
We
intent is that it will
we don't
conform.
need it, no.
Okay.
We want as few deviations as possible.
I don't,
meet
I didn't
that.
want to leave tonight without you having a waiver if you needed.
Oh, yeah,
something.
thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate that, but no.
I noted the retail entrance along Troy with the Troy address, and then I guess my other question, and this might be a Kyle question, is the trees under or partially under the Allen Street overhang. Who maintains those long-term? Are they in the city easement? Who replaces them? If they're getting too close to this overhang, who's trimming them? Should we be talking about reducing the amount of the overhang in order to accommodate the trees, or is there a way that the city can work together with the property owner, or the property owner maintains them? Sure.
I think
Is
we
there
can
encroaching on
address.
the trees?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can address that, because eventually there's going to be a development agreement even beyond everything we're doing tonight. So I would imagine that's something we can do in partnership with the developer. Is that okay with you, Greg? Yeah, and I agree. I'm in favor of some kind of trees that maybe aren't going to grow spectacularly high somewhere that can fit in that area. But yeah, I think us and the developer will work out to create some kind of maintenance for that.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
However, it is the property owner's
I don't think so.
responsibility.
It's our easement, though.
No, but even if the curb yard is the responsibility of the building owner, isn't it?
I mean,
I just made that term up. What is it called?
You did. I said right away.
There's many
yeah.
different names for it, but
the space between the sidewalk and the road.
Would
Whatever
this
that
be an
is.
instance, though, given the location, would that even be within DDA jurisdiction? 'Cause I know DDA is along Troy Street as well, right?
I just think on the north side.
Just on the north side, though, not on
Yeah,
the entire property.
I do think this is part of the DDA. I don't know if the DDA does any kind of landscaping maintenance. I don't know.
Make a condition that it needs to be
They do?
figured out and
Responsible
included
for
in the development agreement?
Okay.
Okay.
That's what, yeah, what he's proposing.
Yeah.
I'll make a condition that tree maintenance is to be
Discussed.
negotiated and included in the development agreement?
It's probably going to be the DPW, which does tree maintenance for the downtown. That's
Yeah, my
going to
question.
contract, the DDA contracts with the DPW to maintain.
And when one of the trees
Flower beds,
starts to
trees,
hit the
all that.
balcony, who decides that the tree gets, that's kind of my, right, DTE does it, and we don't like it, so should the city be doing it? Yeah. Or should we back up the balconies? I like the overhangs, I think it fits well on that site, but the trees need to fit too.
Sure.
Those are my only questions.
Any further questions or comments? I would entertain a motion. I have two
I would move,
motions for the PUD and for the site plan.
I would move in the matter of 221 West Troy Street that the Planning Commission recommends City Council approve the amended planned unit development based on the amended planned unit development agreement dated February 1st, 2023, with the findings and condition as listed in the packet.
Ag Force seconds.
There's a motion by Commissioner Baker and a second by Commissioner Hagfors. I'll have a roll call vote.
Oh, can I ask
Sorry, do I have
a quick
discussion
question?
on the,
Yeah, can I ask a quick question
motion?
on the motion? Before we vote, should I include that note about the trees in the development agreement in the site plan motion or in the PUD motion? I'm thinking it's PUD because it's really the development agreement? Yeah, okay. Then could I amend my motion to add a second condition?
Yes.
Okay, I would amend my motion to add condition number 2, that tree maintenance be negotiated in the development agreement.
Ag Force supports that amendment.
I also wanted to comment, so as part of the PUD, I just want to make it clear that the development agreement that was provided in the packet is part of this PUD motion. So I just want to make sure that there weren't any comments or questions about the language within that agreement.
Yeah, and to clarify, like, there are two different agreements here. We have the PUD agreement, which is sort of like an agreement with ourselves, confusingly. And then there's a separate development agreement that the city will have with the developer.
Sorry, I got confused about which one to attach it to.
If no further discussion, I'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Akers,
Yes.
Commissioner Brazen,
Yes.
Commissioner Azar,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoskew-Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hagfors.
Yes.
Councilman Polika,
Yes.
and Chair Foster.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. We also have a motion prepared in the packet for the site plan approval tied to the PUD.
Got it.
I move, oh,
Go ahead. You got my notes?
nope.
You
So
want me
you
you
go.
want me to try?
Yep, go
Okay.
ahead.
I move in the matter of 221 West Troy Street that the Planning Commission approve the site plan based on plans dated December 15th, 2022, with the following findings. Eliminating finding number 4, that will be addressed in the conditions, and with the following conditions. In the addition of condition number 3, the materials will conform to the zoning ordinance. Condition number 4, the retail entrance will be along Troy Street with the Troy address.
Polika supports.
There's a motion by Commissioner Baker and support by Councilman Polika. Any discussion on the motion for the site plan? I'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Hoskew-Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Azar,
Yes.
Commissioner Brazen,
Yes.
Commissioner Akers,
Yes.
Councilman Polika,
Yes.
Commissioner Hagfors,
Yes.
and Chair Foster.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have the consideration of a special land use application and site plan review for 915 East Drayton, a mixed-use development. We will start with a presentation from Kyle Bryce, our city planner, it looks like.
Okay, thank you again. So this is another item that we saw recently. I think this was at our December meeting. So this was brought forward as a discussion. There was a lot going on at the site, so we brought it forward just to get some input from the commission. I'm happy to say that the commissioner's input was really, really helpful, and it helped bring about a lot of changes on the site plan that I think are for the better. So what we have here is 915 East Drayton. This is the northeast corner of Burdett and Drayton, so this is sort of in the heart of the light industrial district. Gotta keep it open.
It has to be unlocked, and this one's open. Yeah, you probably do have to keep it open. Yeah, I've heard it both ways, yeah.
So what we have is a proposed mixed-use building with a catering company. They also do some kind of food manufacturing, some accessory office to go along with that. So all of those items are permitted outright in the zoning district. They are, I guess, what we would consider light industrial uses. They're also proposing a banquet hall facility. So the banquet hall facility is a special land use only. So tonight we would be considering recommendation of that, and it would go to City Council at a future meeting with another public hearing for their final consideration of approval. But for tonight, I just want to go through this site plan because that is on the agenda. So here's the building. The site plan is fairly changed from the last time it was here. We spent a lot of time talking about a proposed curb cut here in the southwest corner. The applicant has chosen not to go forward with that, so you can strike that. They're proposing to keep and maintain all the current driveways. They have proposed moving the canopy for the valet parking to the southeast corner here, and creating a walkable space along the building with a canopy along the whole side. We have a new sidewalk that goes from this existing pedestrian corner, which is ADA accessible. So we do have an accessible entrance to the building. While there's no sidewalk along Drayton or Burdett, there is on the west side of Burdett. So someone walking from the neighborhood to the north could get to this building fully accessibly. The other major change is the elimination of a storage building in the northeast corner. So they've been able to install several new parking spaces in that area. They have also provided additional landscaping. So we have additional trees down here along Drayton, some hedging. And they were able to put in some parking lot trees in the back just to add some greenery to the space. The building is largely unchanged, but they want to add a significant number of windows on the north side. So that'll add a lot of light into the building, especially for their banquet hall functions. And then here is the floor plan. I believe the floor plan is unchanged from last time. So there's a two-story lobby that runs down the middle. Most of the non-banquet hall functions, so everything else that's permitted is going to be on the south side of the building. The north side is going to be the entirety of the banquet hall space. So over here you can see there's a mezzanine with an elevator and a emergency egress stairwell, and some of the office uses on the south side. The only other thing I wanted to touch on was the parking. So the applicant was able to provide a parking study, which I included in the packet. They came to conclusions that were fairly similar to our ordinance. In short, they've been able to up their on-site parking to 76 spaces. There is a grand total of 114 required, and that's if we took everything all at once. We came up with a nighttime use of 104 spaces. So that's going to be when the catering business and offices are not in use. So we have proposed a parking reduction of 10, which essentially brings the total down to the nighttime. So that puts it on the applicant to fulfill the remaining balance with off-site parking agreements. And according to them, they've secured enough to bring their, I guess, what they have to 110. I've also included some letters of support, and I guess that's all I have. So I don't know, Jason, if you anything you want to run through, or if any of my same parking calculations need clarification, please let me know.
Again, you covered everything. I'm just gonna try and earn my keep. So, let's see, could you open up, oh, here it is. Is this it right here? This is ours. Okay. I won't get into the nitty gritty.
Just in case anyone just joined us on there.
Oh, sorry,
Good morning.
Jason Krieger.
Thank you.
Krieger Cloud Architects, 2120 East 11 Mile.
Thank you.
And I won't get into the nitty gritty that Kyle did because I'll just be redundant, but I'll touch on just a couple things. We have a couple of renderings in here that will show you. We have rendering of the outside, so you get an idea of what the intent is for that. And Patrick's here, and he could say a few words and definitely speak more about the functions and the business aspect than anybody can. So as Kyle mentioned, there were a number of changes on the site. We have to thank everybody, and then also Kyle, he held our feet to the fire to make sure certain things happened or didn't happen. So I think we're all pleased with the design at the end of the day. And I think the biggest change was wrecking that one garage in the back and getting more parking. Since we last met, as Kyle mentioned, we did have a parking study done, which is in your packet. It says 105, I think you came up with 104, so it's pretty much like right in line. So it seems like our deviation is about 10 spots. Patrick can speak to that, but they have lined up parking elsewhere that more than covers that. And we also increased the landscaping quite a bit. So there was a landscape plan attached in the packet. And then we included our floor plans, which have not changed since we last met. And then we just have some renderings. I don't remember if these were in the packet or not, but these are conceptual renderings. This is the bar upstairs of the mezzanine, the patio, the fence. One of the questions that did come up was the fence. We're going to propose to keep the fence all the way around, get rid of the barbed wire. And one thing that's not accurate here, we just didn't have a chance to change it, but you wouldn't see a wooden fence here. You'd see arborvitae in front of that fence in the back. And the arborvitae is depicted, though, on the landscape plan, right here. So we have that. And then the exterior, we want to keep it simple. We're going to have a nice steel canopy that goes across the front. We'll light it up so it's nice. It'll be down lights. We have some up lights. We'll get rid of those for you guys. And, but it is an industrial area, and I know that there's also residential allowed in there too. So that's up to the Planning Commission. We just want to make sure that it's well lit at night, looks inviting, and safe. So that's what I have architecturally without reiterating what Kyle already said. So I don't know if I want to say anything. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Before I open up for the public hearing, I just have one question, Kyle. And I guess we could get into it later, but I might as well go into it now. Well, you know what, seeing that there's no public hearing, I'll just, I might as well open the public hearing and then we can move on to comments and questions. And I just want to say for the record that this is, I have a public hearing for the special land use. There are multiple uses proposed on site, catering and manufacturing of, what is it called in our ordinance? Before the food products are permitted uses in the industrial district, and then the special land use is for the banquet hall use. And so we'll have the special, the public hearing for the special land use for the banquet hall use of the site plan. And so I will open the public hearing for the special land use application at 915 East Drayton at 7:25. And quickly close it, seeing how there is nobody here to speak to the public hearing at 9:25. All right. Cal, my first question, just for some background, I know that we talked about it at the last meeting, and you kind of addressed a little bit of the pedestrian circulation here in your intro, but really, I think we'd like a good understanding if you have any more details about the lack of a continuation of this site, of that pedestrian walkway. I know we had some kind of questions about why that was, and didn't know if you had any further details for us.
You know, I spoke to the city engineer. They said that they did a study, and they just preferred going along the west side of Burdett. I think there were less conflicts for them, so they went ahead and they installed it only on the west side. I think we've raised the point here. There are some, you know, utility conflicts. I think there's a water main that goes along the east side for a large portion of it. So, I mean, that's really all I have, is the city did a study, and we have sidewalk along the west side of Burdett.
Through the chair.
So, yeah, so, well, typically, you know, as part of the city putting the infrastructure in and having that study done is one thing versus when we're doing the redevelopment of a site plan, is my understanding that where there's a lack of that pedestrian walkway, that then it is as part of the updates to the property, part of the developer's responsibility to continue those. So maybe, but I know that there were some utility potential conflicts or other things, so I just kind of want to make sure that we're understanding the reasons, I guess, for that discontinuation. And did you have something?
Yeah, well, I mean, my bigger problem actually is the lack of the sidewalk continuation on Drain, because there's no sidewalk on Drain right now. So like Burdett, I understand what you're saying about there is a sidewalk on the opposite side, and it's still not perfect, but I get where your reference, but Drayton, there's no sidewalk at all right now, except for this couple little pad, and so it's like, that's where I see if they're updating the property to conform to the requirement, I think that's a missed opportunity if we don't push to get that actually extended, because there's no sidewalks on either side right now.
And this might be something that the applicant can speak to as well.
Yeah, I know we made the request, I guess, just to, you know, I'm not aware, I ran this by our building official and the city engineer to see if we have like anything in our ordinance that requires this sidewalk gap infill, and they said that we officially don't. So, I mean, I did make the request. In addition to the utility conflicts, I mean, I think trees are in the way. I know this is sort of tight. Obviously, there are ways around this if we really wanted to get the sidewalk in there. But yeah, I mean, there are some gaps here. I don't know if the applicants is something you've considered, adding more sidewalk infill along the area. That's possible.
You're open to it.
Parking. Oh, microphone.
Patrick Van Len, 915 East Drayton.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're open to that conversation. It's a unique area, particularly in front of that, the southwest with smaller parking area there. There's not a ton of space for it to run it, but we're open for the discussion on it.
That path that is there, that was done by the city, correct? Yeah, so that it like ends halfway through the.
I believe so.
Run that down.
Where the sidewalk ends, yeah.
It's about,
But I'm wondering if there is a reason for where that lands there.
yeah, like why even
Their
go that
property
way?
line too, though, it's tough, right? The property line goes through the middle sidewalk.
So, yeah.
So if we wanted to have them put it on their side.
I mean, I think that's something we can explore. I mean, I got a pretty quick response back, and, you know, I just didn't know if there was a way for us to require it. I don't think there is, frankly, in the ordinance that requires sidewalk gap infill as you know, as good as that would be in the situation. Yeah, I mean, you can look at the property lines too. It's a little tricky, but I mean, if the applicant's open to it, I think there's something we could look into it. It might have to go well into, you know, be within our right of way for the most part. I'm just wondering how I would, you know, dodge in and out of the trees. But certainly where there's a will, there's a way.
I mean, I'd like to hear some, maybe discussion from the commission on what we would like to see, because I think as part of the special land use, it's certainly part of our purview to make sure that there's adequate facilities to, protect the safety of residents and people within the vicinity and, traveling to the property. And so I just want to make sure that we're all comfortable. And I know this was part of our conversation, last time, what we think that should be required and that's, so.
Through the chair. So as we start changing the use of industrial areas to more commercial use or even residential use, we're changing it to pedestrian access. So I think long-term, we probably need to put this on one of the lists of items for the zoning ordinance, our review and change, to look at that as a possibility. Short-term, I think we should go in that direction. It's completely changing the use of the property to pedestrian use, to general public use. And they will be accessing, residents or users of the site will be accessing this site from other parking lots. They need to be able to access the site other than the street. So I would push that, sidewalks on the property would need to be required.
Yeah, whether it's guests at events or the valets moving
Right.
around. Either way, you
Yeah.
don't want people running in the
I didn't even think
the
of the
street
ballets,
to
yeah.
access the site. I guess that's the reason I had a question about the sidewalks. And we knew that this was going to come up as we started to change uses in this neighborhood. Like, it wasn't designed for this type of use. We know we're gonna keep running into these spaces where it's a hard call, like, it's sort of city property, it's sort of private property, it's changing the use. How do we keep people safe as they move around this neighborhood that wasn't meant for pedestrian traffic? So the paving up Burdette, the sidewalk up Burdette does bring the site into better compliance. My preference would be to continue the paving along East Drayton and Burdette in order to make it safer circulation around the site. But I think that East Drayton in particular, as people are moving back from, either valets are moving back and forth or pedestrians are moving back and forth, getting dropped off or parking other places, would be important. It's just such a narrow street.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we should put it on there. I think it
It's
makes sense.
It's a tough balance to find in this, as the neighborhood emerges. You're a little bit of a test.
I do want to know, and as part of our master planning process, we talked a lot about trade-offs. When we want one thing, we might have to sacrifice another, and it looks like we might have to lose trees on the way there. I think would be unfortunate, but want to make sure that we're also addressing safety of the site and circulation. And along that, I do have a question. So the parking agreements, can you talk about those a little bit further and where you've located parking spaces?
Certainly. So to the 910 East Drayton, which is across the street, Paradigm Plumbing. We've worked on an agreement with them. We're just now going through the contractual phases of it, but we agreed in principle and everything there. So that's where we'll be gaining those spots. And then Star Tracks will be providing our valet services. They will also use their parking lot for spillover if necessary, but I don't think that will be necessary. I think the vast majority of events that we'll have, particularly weddings, are going to be 180 to 210 people, which probably won't require us to use off-site parking, but we have it right across the street when we need it.
Thank you.
Well, ride share has really changed that dynamic too. I think you'll see people getting dropped off, which is another reason I'm thinking about sidewalks.
Oh, sorry. I agree with you, and we're talking to different hotels in the area to formalize some agreements there so we can do some shuttles. So, yeah, we agree with you. We want this to make it easy for folks to get in and out. I think ride sharing is only going to get bigger and bigger. But if we can do the majority of, keep the majority of parking on site through our valet, we control all the components of the events that might have an issue.
Sorry, thank you for the details. Going back to the comment about losing trees, we were already deficient 3 trees for the landscaping plan. I don't believe we can waive that. If we have to take out trees and we're deficient by more, I believe we would have to pay into the tree fund. So I know that it's extra concrete costs for the sidewalk and paying into the tree fund. Just want to make sure you're aware of.
Yes, we were aware, and I think we actually, by making the changes since the last time we were here, and idea passed you guys, we actually added some trees.
Okay.
And we were just talking, I think they're, although some of the areas might be narrow, I think we're just going to be creative with looking at the right types of trees. I think there are some that are absolutely beautiful, but are more of a narrow variety that will work beautifully in certain spots. So I think that we will be okay, but if we do not have an adequate number to meet needs, we will be happy to pay.
Thank you. And we can structure our condition around that to account for that. Thank you. Anything further on circulation or landscaping or any other comments or questions?
Probably just a quick question on use. And Jason, I just want to confirm with you because you showed the renderings and now you got me worried. Again, the use of this is food production in the front and like event space for like weddings and concerts, parties, whatever you want to do in the back, correct? Because the rendering you showed was Ferndale Food Hall, and now I'm trying to think that it's like the Detroit Shipping Company coming. I'm like, hold on, what are we doing here?
Hey, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to embarrass him for leaving it on there.
I don't mind embarrassing
It
him.
would
I
most
know he knows
definitely
details.
be
Yeah.
Ferndale Food Hall.
Okay, okay.
It's all right, he took someone's house off of a prior site plan that you've heard about tonight. You can
How
embarrass
dare
them.
you?
Go ahead, you answer that question.
Okay.
I thought you
Just
might
checking,
want
thank
to.
you.
I do have a question about the parking count.
I have the same question, so,
I think we're waiving too many.
so, yeah, do you want to address that, just go over,
It's 10 and not 4. If the applicant secured 110 spaces and we require 114, why are we waiving 10 and not 4? I just want to double check our math so we waive the right number.
So my way of thinking was we have 114 required, so that's the top number. And then my peak nighttime was 104. So I feel like that's truly the ask. They do have 110.
I got it.
So I think we could go to 110, but I mean, I was just trying to do,
No, I don't got it.
so the ordinance
I had you,
requires
but I lost you.
114 spaces. The applicant has secured 110.
You're self-deducting 10 under the assumption that the food production in the morning will not be using the 10 spaces that they have in the back. So it's 114 for both uses, but you're deducting some because of the different time of
I
use.
got it.
in a
I got
sense,
it.
like, I'm not even considering the 110. It's like,
I don't
that's
have them. Okay.
whatever they can provide and get to the requirement. You know, the shared parking agreements is going to be like 30-ish. So, you know, however they can get to that number and it's approved by the city attorney, that's fine. I'm just looking at our numbers, which is 114 and 104.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
so,
Thank
you
you.
know,
I got
they have the one provision of section G, shared parking by multiple uses with peak parking demands during different times of the day or days of the week.
So this means that we would potentially be comfortable with them losing up to 6 off-site spaces. That's what we're saying, if we waive 10. I just want to be clear.
I don't think we're actually waiving 10. I think it was the shared spaces idea.
Yeah, it's a parking reduction of 10, and it's up to the applicant. I mean, if they have 110 secured, or if they have 104 secured, I mean, from our zoning ordinance perspective, I don't think it really makes a difference.
So we're saying with the 10 reduction, we're saying that they require a total of 104, there's 76 on site.
Yeah.
Okay,
However, they come up with that balance, and if they go over, and they can go over legally, that's, I guess, up to them and their third party.
okay.
It works as long as there's not a third shift for sushi production, otherwise then that throws off your calculation, but. Oh, yeah. Good luck.
Out of our purview, sadly.
But if you find out, let me know.
Okay, I understand, thank you. Okay.
There's no further questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion. Special land use?
Yeah, all of my issues have been addressed. I think this is a fantastic project. My question actually, because I'm throwing my event planner, valet, special event kind of hat on, and I'm wondering why you put the pre-function space after the banquet hall. If I'm coming into the space, wouldn't I want to go directly into the pre-function space instead of walking all the way down the aisle to the pre-function space and then come back down into the banquet hall? You see what I'm saying? Like if I come into the building, I would go right into the pre-function space. Have the cocktail hour, all of that, and then boom, you would go and open up the doors toward the north and go into the banquet hall. And then your patio is actually off of the banquet hall.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. If I heard you correctly, so where the entrance lobby is, going back through into that two-story lobby that we've got listed there?
Yeah,
And then
I'm
you've
assuming
got-
that's the main entrance where everybody's going to be coming into.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then your question is the pre-function space, which is underneath our mezzanine level, right? The thought process there is if we're doing a wedding in that banquet space, that's actually where we'll have chairs in the.
Is the ceiling different? Is that why?
Say again?
Is the ceiling different in the different spaces?
Yeah, so that pre-function space is underneath a mezzanine level.
Oh, okay.
So it'll allow us to get people in there, and then we take chairs down, put tables down for.
Well, we'll all be excited to see it
Right.
once it's completed.
Yeah.
Also, is the main, which may also, I think, have been part of the confusion, is the main entrance to the facility from the south side, like the long hallway going north? Or is it from the west side, this entry lobby into hallway, and then you get into the main hall, exactly like that? Are you
Yeah.
entering here from the west?
Yeah, so north is,
Oh, I'm,
Gotta
okay,
rotate.
I'm sorry.
Building was.
I'm,
Front.
I look at everything as being north.
yeah.
So
about
you drew it east and west.
So, yeah, here's north is up.
Rotated, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's really this way.
So you are entering.
Now I understand. Now it makes sense.
It's got to fit on an 11 by 17.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that
yep.
makes sense.
Now I get
So
it.
here's
Okay.
the rendering of, this would be the pre-function space, correct? Looking north, I'm presuming. So you can actually see there's a ceiling here.
Yeah.
Above this is the mezzanine. And then here is,
Well,
if
that's
you're
just
in the
next
same
door.
spot, just to the east,
Yeah.
you're looking north again, and you can see the open banquet hall. And these stairs lead up to the mezzanine, which is on the other side of this wall.
Yeah, I had my orientation wrong. I thought this was north and south, those two rooms, and they're east and west, so.
All right, thank you. So for either the parking reduction or special land use motion?
I could start with special land use. I don't think we had any notes on that. My notes on the sidewalk I put on the site plan motion. Okay. All right, correct me if I need to add anything to special land use rather than site plan, because Kyle, I've got notes on filing shared parking agreements with the city and the sidewalk on East Drayton. So if one of those should be with site plan rather than, I'm sorry, should be with special land use rather than site plan. I don't think so, but.
No, I have a condition of the site plan. Condition number 2 is for the contingent on securing parking agreements.
Oh, review and approval by city attorney, it's right there. Thank you, all right.
I missed that too. Thanks, Scott.
Sean and I both missed that. Okay. I would move in the matter of 915 East Drayton, after a public hearing was held for the stay in place, that the planning commission recommend that the city council approve the special land use based on the plans dated January 27th, 2023. The findings 1 through 5 is listed in the packet.
Askew supports.
Motion by Baker and support from Hosky Kramer. Any discussion on the motion for the special land use? Hearing none, I'd have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Azar,
Yes.
Commissioner Brazen,
Yes.
Commissioner Akers,
Yes.
Councilman Polika,
Yes.
Commissioner Hagfors,
Yes.
Commissioner Hosky Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
and Chair Foster.
Yes. Motion passes.
I would approve in the matter of, or I'm sorry, I would move.
You got that power, don't you?
I would move in the matter of 915 East Drayton Street, that the planning commission approve the parking reduction request for 10 off-street parking spaces based on plans dated January 27th, 2023, with finding number 1 as included in the packet.
Support Brazen.
Motion by Baker and support by Brazen. Any discussion on the parking reduction motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hagfors,
Yes.
Commissioner Hosky Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Azar,
Yes.
Commissioner Brazen,
Yes.
Commissioner Akers,
Yes.
Councilman Polika,
Yes.
and Chair Foster.
Yes.
And finally, I would move in the matter of 915 East Drayton Street, that the planning commission approve the site plan based on plans dated January 27th, 2023, with the following findings, numbers 1 through 3, an adjustment to finding number 4, so that it read, the planning commission accepted payment in lieu for the deficient 3 trees to be placed in the city's tree fund, with adjustments to be made by city staff to accommodate sidewalks.
Can we just,
Finding 5 as written in the packet. Conditions 1 through 3 as written in the packet, with the addition of condition 4, sidewalk along East Drayton to continue to the east property line.
Support from Brazen.
just taking notes. Motion by Commissioner Baker, support with Commissioner Brazen. I would propose a friendly amendment to the wording of condition 4, finding 4. I think it might just be less confusing if we say the planning commission accepts payment in lieu for the number of deficient, a number of trees that are deficient per the per the zoning ordinance. Yeah, less confusing. I can't even explain what I'm trying to say. But I don't know if we would want like a maximum number. So
I just want to make it clear so Kyle can
yeah,
answer it after they update the site plan. I could try again. What about planning commission accepts payment in lieu for deficient trees of 3 or more? Or, I don't want to just say to accommodate sidewalks, because we're already 3 deficient, right? So,
I mean, I think we can keep it open-ended, you know, for any deficient trees after sidewalk design
Are
or
we
something
3
like
trees
that.
deficient based on the updated?
Yeah,
yes.
we're not sure how many it's going to,
for any
so,
number of deficient trees after
Agreed.
sidewalk design.
yeah. Unless we want to have a maximum, because,
In that neighborhood, I guess I'm not as worried about the maximum. It looks like they've got more room on the
I think
other
we need
side.
more trees because of the
But I
neighborhood.
think they've got room on the other side of the driveway, right? It's a different depth. I'm not sure, I'm hearing different things from different commissioners.
I just say personally, I don't think I would, like, anything could happen in the next, 2 years while the site plan is valid, and if they come and go to the city staff and say, well, we just want to get rid of all trees and we're going to pay into the tree fund, I wouldn't necessarily be okay with that. I do want to see some trees, so I don't know what my maximum number would be, 6, 7, I think I'd be fine with, but would be my opinion, that we don't leave it just open-ended.
Okay, I'm looking. You might landscape.
Anyone
Can
else
it
have
be
a?
2 separate clauses, like a approves 3 as deficient, like per the site plan presented today, and up to 3 or 4 after incorporation of
Yeah.
sidewalk?
I think that they said they might not even be those 3, so it's,
I
that's
see,
still a
I
little
see.
bit of added confusion. Can we just say up to 6 or 7 trees, or however many we're comfortable with?
What's the will of the commission? I'll amend my motion. Just looking for dimensions.
I think I'm less concerned about the number. I think the interest from the development team is to include trees along that right of way. It's more of a, I think, with the option to have staff additional trees to accommodate the East Drayton sidewalk. Maybe we focus it as to where the additional trees could be lost as opposed to the number.
Or it'd also be okay with, just saying as approved by city staff, and I'm sure they have the best interests of the neighborhood and environment, and I would be okay with that as well. Hey, Lou, for the number of deficient trees for the zoning ordinance to be reviewed and approved by city staff, final site plan?
Is that clear on your end, Kyle?
Yeah.
Is that clear on your end, Jason? Did we get it for the record? Because I'm not going to be able to restate it the way she stated it.
We might have to, re-listen to that.
But
a
I
couple
accept
times,
her
but-
suggestion, and I would update finding number 4 to what Chair Foster just said.
I would support.
And that's at 7:53 PM if we need to find it in the recording.
All right, if no further discussion on the motion, ask for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Brazen,
Yes.
Commissioner Azar,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoskew-Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hagfors,
Yes.
Councilman Polika,
Yes.
Commissioner Akers,
Yes.
and Chair Foster.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Welcome.
With that, we can move to administrative items. We have on our agenda the election of officers. And Kyle, did you have anything else for us on our administrative items?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, with the election of officers, which we do once a year, we have the election of the chair and vice chair positions. And I will open it up to recommendations.
Through the chair, we have the BZA liaison as well.
And the BZA liaison, thank you for the reminder. Who's our current BZA?
I am,
Guy first?
which, through the chair, probably in the interest of job change and not being in the area on Tuesday nights any longer, I would push to have a different liaison. I mean, it's been very hands-off, aside from one meeting, I think, the entire year. They haven't had any. So it's not a big time commitment, but just in the off chance that something pressing comes up and I'm not in the area, I wouldn't want them to lack the plan commission insight.
Does the zoning board still have alternates?
Yes, and technically the BZA liaison is an alternate,
Ah, okay.
so.
Thank you for that clarification. And also, Commissioner Showalter couldn't be here this evening, but I did talk to him multiple times before the meeting, and he wanted to make it clear that he certainly is open to continuing his position as the vice chair, although he recognizes that it can be difficult with his recusal from All Krieger projects, that it often puts us in a little bit of a bind, but it's not an issue that we can't overcome. And so I just want to make that clear. He said he was comfortable if somebody else wanted to step in because of that, or he was certainly happy to continue to dedicate his time to that.
A position you'd like us to start with in terms of putting nominations on the floor? Because we can nominate people or people can self-nominate.
Correct. And I would say that I have been happy to serve as chair, and I actually also might have a job change coming up, but I think that will make it a little bit easier for me to accommodate the multiple meetings that are required as well. So I'm happy to continue unless anyone else would like to.
I'll put a nomination on the floor. Chair Foster continue in her role for another year. She accepts that.
I do accept.
Support.
Thank you.
Or second. I think you have to do,
We do
Yeah.
roll call.
Yeah,
yeah,
roll
you
call.
have to do roll call.
Okay, so that is a
for elected
nomination
positions.
for the chair position of Michelle Foster, me, that's awkward, by Commissioner Baker, with support from Councilman Pollico. Roll call vote, please.
Hagfors,
Yes?
Oski Kramer,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Azar,
Yes.
Brazen,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
and Councilman Polika.
Yes.
Chair
Thank you,
Foster.
everyone. Yes, I accept. Appreciate the vote of confidence, especially after I didn't get much sleep last night and today. Fumbling through our meeting quite a bit, so appreciate that. And so if we want to move on to vice chair.
I move to nominate Matt Showalter for vice chair.
I'll second.
That is nomination or a motion from Councilman Polika with a second from Commissioner Hagfors to nominate Commissioner Showalter for the vice chair position. Any comments?
I'm not trying to volunteer, I just want to know if interested.
Discussion or? All right, we'll have a roll call vote.
Hagfors,
Yes?
Oski Kramer,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Chair Foster,
Yes.
Azar,
Yes.
Brazen,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
and Councilman Polika.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. And last but not least, our BZA liaison. Anyone like to dive into the zoning board?
If it may help for anyone considering it, like context-wise, again, it's very few meetings. Really where it does come in, and I know that we're an alternate, but where it really came in handy was the particular item that kind of came up. It was either if it's been discussed here, sometimes they may look to us to just kind of provide some of that feedback on what we discussed. That way they can kind of continue on with the conversation. Or it may be even kind of representing and saying like, we all sit on here and see what are kind of problems that come up all the time. And so it's almost kind of just providing them that insight that says, hey, you know, if maybe the fencing material is the problem that they're trying to avoid, it's like, you know, we're going to talk about it too. So let's just try to square us away and call it good. And then it kind of makes this process a little bit easier. So it's not a lot of stress, but you do kind of play a part in the whole thing.
Did you?
The chair. I was on it for 6 years as a council member. I really enjoyed it. I would consider it, but I'm a council person and we already have a council person on it, so I can't serve on both. But I enjoyed it. I thought the items that would come up were interesting. Oh, you're at the meetings.
Through the chair, I've actually only been to one meeting. We've only had one.
But see, that then speaks to the fact that our zoning is actually working really well because people aren't having problems trying to meet the zoning requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To that point, I was going to ask, so we said at our last meeting that we have an RFP coming out for a zoning ordinance update, which we will be releasing soon. And we will be working on that process. I was wondering, do we have any intentions of convening the BZA for any special sessions for that we might want to be aware of before anyone? I know we still serve it as an alternate, but also might be good. It might be something that we continue to talk about as we move forward with the
Yeah.
plan. But. And then for any of you who don't know, I believe Ian Williamson is still the chair until they have another meeting and have to do the same thing as we did this evening of the election of officers. But I assume, or I think that he was planning on continuing to serve in that function, and he used to be a part of the planning commission. He's really wonderful to work with, so.
And to be clear, it is the third Tuesday of the month at
Third Tuesday?
7 o'clock, I think.
Yeah. That's
And
what I
they-
remember.
Yeah, and they do meet as needed, which was only one time last year, which frankly was definitely light if you look historically, but it is as needed.
Third Tuesdays are the night that the Detroit Artist Market has board meetings. I'm the board president for the next 2 years, so I definitely can't, unfortunately.
I am overextended, so I
I would be interested, and if there's others,
cannot. I think you would be
We'll have a comment.
wonderful.
okay.
That would be great. Second.
Self-motion.
Yeah, or I would recommend Commissioner Czar to serve as our
Second, yeah.
BCA. All right, second by Brazen. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Hagfors?
Yes.
Oski Kramer?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Chair Foster?
Yes.
Azar?
Yes.
Grayson?
Yes.
Akers?
Yes.
And Councilman Polika?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Look forward to working with everyone for another year.
Plan on enjoying
I do, so just speaking of the zoning ordinance RFP, do we want to talk a little bit about the process there real quick, just so everyone's aware, because I think we'll work through before our next meeting, I believe.
Yeah, so post master plan update, land use plan update, we have discussed doing a zoning code rewrite. We were discussing doing it in-house, and then we have $50,000 under MEDC from Ready Redevelopment Communities that they'll match. So I think we are on with a total rewrite. Kyle's gonna handle it all. So Kyle, he's really excited.
The whole rewrite?
Well, the management of it as we hire a consultant.
I was joking.
But we are, we have a steering committee that we work with the city manager on proposing, and it is one planning commission member, one counselor, the DDA, Lena, communications, Kara, and then myself, and Denicia. From this end, we asked Chair Foster to participate, and then we asked Councilor Polika to participate from council. So I have to talk with the mayor to make sure that's okay, but I think we have our two people. So we have you two, me, Denicia, Kara, and Lena. We have an RFP written. I think we,
The assistant city manager?
assistant to the city manager, yeah.
Thank you.
We have the RFP written that we will send out, that we sent out today to the steering committee. That we're going to send out tomorrow to the steering committee, get their final approval, and then we will flip it to planning commission. My hope is that we will be publishing it Monday, Tuesday maybe. We have discussed a plan to get it out in the public, so we get responses from consultants. And then we will, take all the requests in, and then the steering committee will make a recommendation to the city manager on who to select, and then we will start it. The hope is that, we could have it done July, August, September, but it's a lot of work. I think we want to, from a staff perspective, city management perspective, want this to be extremely progressive, want to, we've sent some topics out to you that we've now sent to council. We wanted to address any disparities. We want to take a look at racial equity and units and accessory dwelling units. So I think we want to, my goal is to get in the newspaper for doing something really cool with our zoning code and pushing it to the limit on what we can do, but that is to be seen. It's kind of the information. I don't know if there's any other questions.
Thank you. And it'd be my intention as part of the steering committee to bring information back, because I'm sure I believe that everyone is interested in the process, and so we can bring as much detail back to the commission as everyone would like.
Yeah, and we've asked council to select a couple main community engagement pieces they'd like to have, whether it be downtown design, whether it be fencing, lighting, fenestration, whether it be racial equity. So once we collect those and figure out what are the community engagement pieces, throughout the process, we'll be inviting all of Planning Commission to come participate in the community engagement. So there will be opportunities to come and engage.
This is just for the RFP creation?
No, this is once it's
Okay.
out.
I got it.
So once we select the person, we'll be telling them the community engagement. We're not going to engage generally the community on every detail, although they'll be available to speak to it. We're going to engage them on specific, 3-4 topics, and that's where we will definitely invite the Planning Commission to participate.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you.
Through the chair, doesn't it make sense to identify what to present to the public once we've made the changes?
Doesn't it make sense? Say that again.
Probably both. Do you mean like during the process to update and then after we make the?
Well, no, my understanding is you're asking, well, we're agreement. You're asking council to identify a couple of items that be a part of the community engagement portion. That community engagement portion is within the period of time that we're redeveloping the ordinance, or is it before we start redeveloping the ordinance?
Like, is it going to help guide? the
I'm still a little confused. So we're not going to engage the public on every single detail, every word of it. So we're going to ask council what they would like us to engage the community on, since they have ownership in responding to the citizens. If the council responds, we think the engagement should be downtown design, racial equity, and ADUs. That will be what we'll work with the respondent to the RFP on. We'll want to hear what their take is on the community engagement. And it could change the process. We might add a fourth one if the community is asking for a special topic. But it will be, as the code is being rewritten, they'll be engaging the public on those particular topics to help draft those sections of the code.
And so it's the priority area, so
Makes sense.
this is additional public engagement to what will, as part of the zoning ordinance update, we'll also have to engage the public in terms of public hearings for any
Yeah.
ordinance changes, and so this would be supplemental to that in
Yes.
prior to us actually coding anything.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm wondering is, should we focus on the ones that are going to have the biggest changes to it? Because if there's an item that council, no offense to council, but, if they pick A and A has like 3 little changes to it, what benefit is that to the community?
I think this is exactly why you're on the steering committee. No, really, because you're going to choose, you're on the council and you're on the commission, you're on the steering committee, so you're going to choose these 3 or 4 key areas to put out in the RFP, right? So really, your voice is going to be loudest at that council table to say, I don't know why we're choosing that as a priority area. I think it should be this.
So you're expecting me to do work on the steering committee?
You're on the RFP development steering committee, so like you're choosing these areas.
Gotcha.
The RFPs that you get back are going to respond to how do we engage the public around these
I'm
areas.
not used to having this much power.
I don't think.
I think it's exactly why you're on the steering committee.
I don't think, yes, I don't think the council is going to say, we really need to focus on what kind of design fencing shall be. I think they're going to be broad topics that will be
Like
engaged.
ADUs or.
It'll be ADUs, yeah, very big.
points.
But as a counselor, we're waiting for your response on what you think the focus should be. It also might change. I mean, once we get the RFPs back and get feedback from them, it may be that we come back to council and say, item 2 you recommended, we actually recommend we switch that out for this one. It may be that we start with 3, and then as it unfolds and we get comments, we really realize the community is wanting feedback on public facilities or something, and we engage with that or something else, traffic.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks.
All right. Anything else on the zoning ordinance? I just want to say, I think that our process of bringing discussion items to the commission so that we can discuss them is working very well. I think that, like, to get out at 10 after 8 on a night that we have 2 public hearings speaks to the amount of work that the city staff has been putting into projects and working with our development teams and applicants, as well as getting them in front of us to discuss items before applications go in. So it seems to be working really well on our end. I hope that the applicants are seeing the benefits as well. So I just want to say thank you for all the hard work you guys do.
Well, if I could add, it also helps when the people are listening to what we're suggesting and they're coming back with the things that we want changed. That helps too.
Definitely. So for commission items. Yes, go ahead.
I just have one request. There's clearly going to be some type of Livernois/Ferndale Foods communication plan developed, as there has been for other large projects. And I'm sure you guys will work on that with council and the communications team. And if I could just ask if you let the planning commission know sort of whether it's the web landing page or like whatever the thing is that we're going to do. I live like 2 blocks away and I'm going to get so many questions.
That's a really good. That's a really good point, and we did talk about that in our pre-plan call. This is a really great site to put up a project page on the city website as we have in the past.
Once there's a project, I mean.
Well, right, because we don't actually have an application yet. So if we do receive an application for the site, that would be part of it. It was brought up to my attention that our enhanced notice policy doesn't seem that it was ever adopted by council. And so that might be something that we need to, I believe that was verified, right? And I just wanted to I know that we've heard, or it was my understanding that we've talked about this a lot and we've had this in the past. So it was kind of news to me that hadn't been like an adopted policy. I think as part of our zoning ordinance updates, we've definitely talked about our noticing procedures and some things we might want in terms of our application process. But I did want to note that I thought it was council initiated, and so I was surprised that it was never adopted, but that provides some confusing guidance for administration to administer a policy that was never adopted. And I don't think we've had to do that. We haven't done the enhanced notice in a bit. And so especially with new stuff, I just want to make sure that was clear from our side and administration side.
Yeah, so when I started, one of the first things Kyle asked is, hey, we have this notice that's not really there, but it's there sometimes, but it's not clear when it's there. I think you verified it was used for Iron Ridge, but we don't know that it was used anywhere else. And so in talking with Dan Christ, he's really big on codifying stuff. It needs to be a rule. Where I came from, people who got notice could appeal, and so they would want us to send it, instead of 300, can we do 500 this time? And it was like, no, we can't do 500 because if somebody appeals, now we have a bigger problem. But, so that's where I came from, there was legality around it. But I think Dan Chris's idea is he doesn't mind any notice for every application, some applications, certain applications, but he believes it should be codified. So I don't know if Jordan came up with it and then it was proposed and then it just kind of fell by the wayside, but I do think we're having a big opportunity with the new code rewrite to lay out application requirements, submittal requirements. Some things can be admin, some things can be BPC, what will require notice, how far. I think there's a great opportunity there. If the planning commission, the one good thing I think I would mention is that the neighbors do know about this now. Luckily, it was in the newspaper. That was great. So people do know. So we will engage them and let them know that they should let the neighbors know. I think we're talking about a web page. We're going to talk with the applicant too to let them know they should really engage the applicants. I'll have a conversation tomorrow with Mr. Kaiser and the other gentleman, I'll try to explain to them that it was just a discussion item. It was speed dating. It wasn't a real date. But they can stay tuned. We have committed to reaching out to them if an application is submitted. So I think we're dealing with it.
Thank you.
I think you can let Mr. Scott know that we also noticed that at the table, that there was this lovely green area that actually isn't green area, it's his home. So the planning commission immediately also caught that.
I will let him know. I will let him know that
Parcel boundary, which shows it not being there. I think they just didn't want to draw in a random.
I thought I was the one that brought up. I thought I was the one that brought up that there was like this little park here, and I don't know where this park is.
I think they just
I will let
cheaped
him know.
out
I will
on
let
the
him know.
design.
Some architects take a picture of the background and blur out stuff, and some just enter in design only deals with the site because they're not focused on that. I will let him know that his house is not being demolished. It'll be staying there.
Yeah.
It didn't sneak past us,
I will let them know.
nor did the water main or anything.
And you did just refer to them as the applicants, but I just want to say, they actually haven't, just verifying, they actually haven't made an application, it was just a discussion item, so it's a future potential applicant that we're discussing, yeah.
Yep.
Just clarifying. All righty, any other commission items this evening? Hearing none, we will adjourn at 8:16. Thank you.
Meeting.
So.